Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this video lesson. We're going to be talking about the C++ repetition structure. And to demonstrate this, I've already created a program that we can take a look at. So as you can see here, we are using the while statement to demonstrate how a repetition structure works. In essence, a repetition structure loops. It does something over and over and over again, as long as a particular situation or condition is true. And so that's this part over here inside of the parentheses. So this sometimes is referred to as the Boolean expression or sometimes the predicate. While this thing is true, perform the loop body over and over again. And so the beginning of the loop is this curly bracket, and this curly braces over here is the ending of the loop body. And so we are about to do this thing over and over and over again as long as this situation is true. All right, so let's see what this program does. First of all, looks like we're going to be asking the user to enter a whole number. We're going to be putting that into usernum, which is an integer. All right, so now that we have that, we have count. Now, CNT, which is an abbreviation for count or counter, we're going to start that off equal to 0. So what I want you to imagine is you playing slot cars, right? You probably played, especially the boys, right? But, there's a lot of girls that like racing cars as well, right? We race slot cars when we're little kids. And what do? You set the counter to 0 because when the car completes one lap, that is where the counter goes from 0 to 1, right? Because you've just completed one lap. Same thing over here with the while statement, right? Okay, ready, go. So we're going to perform the loop body, and we've just done it once, so now counter is going to be incremented by 1. We do it again, counter is incremented by 1 to go to 2, and 3, 4, 5. How many laps have you performed? That's what a repetition structure does. And so we need a counter to keep track of how many times we are looping around or going through these laps, so to speak. All right, another thing is to make sure that we keep track of our counter, right? How many times have we gone around through this? Well, that's what this statement does over here. So this is an incrementing statement. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, whatever the old value of counter is, plus plus means to increment it by 1. So if counter is 0, after this statement, counter is going to be 1. If counter is 1, after this statement, counter is going to be 2, and so forth and so on. Well, as long as the counter is less than or equal to the user number, what are we doing? Well, we're going to take the old output. Now, the old output, the first go around, as you can see here, is blank. So we're going to take the old output. We are going to concatenate that to the value of counter. Well, here's the problem. Counter is an integer, and you can't take a string and concatenate that to an integer. So we have to take this and convert it to a string. So we use the to_string function. It's a built-in function. And what that thing does is it's going to take this thing, whatever it is, an integer, a double, and it's going to convert that to a string. So in this case, counter, which is 0, is going to be converted to a string. The old output is blank, so basically this is going to have a 0 concatenated with a space, so we should have 0 space. Counter then goes to 1. All right, so then we go back over here, is 1 less than or equal to the user number? Well, if that's true, then we take the old output, which is 0 space, and we concatenate that with whatever the new counter value is, which in this case is 1, and then we concatenate another space. And then we just keep on going through this over and over and over again until the counter is no longer less than or equal to the user number. We send out the output. Okay, so let's see what the program looks like when I run it. Let me go ahead and click yes. And let's enter the number 5, say for example. So enter a whole number, I enter 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are displayed. And the reason why that is because the counter starts off at 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 5, right? Which is what the user number entered, or what the user entered. Yeah, it is. So we're going to display the 0, and then we're going to put a space. And so that's the space right there. And then we go back over here, counter is equal to 1, and then 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Is 5 less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is, so we display it. Finally, counter is going to be 6. Is 6 less than or equal to the user number? No, it's not. So therefore, we do not continue from here, and what ends up happening is the bottom of our code says output whatever I'm sorry, we're going to see out whatever the output is, and the output in this case is the string, right? Output string is something that contains 0 space 1 space blah 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 all the way to the number 5, and that's what's being sent out to the computer or to the screen. All right, so this is a very simple example of how a repetition statement works in C++. The while statement is probably the most basic of all the repetition structures in C++ rather. So you have to have a counter and give it some initial value. You have to have a predicate or a Boolean expression to determine how many times is this thing going to loop. And then finally, you have to have some value to indicate how it's going to be incrementing. Well, or could be decrementing for that matter. In this case, it's incrementing one by one. All right, now if I did not have this, this is very dangerous. This is what's called an infinite loop. Let's say that the user enters 3. Okay, counter is 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 3? Yes. So we output this. Is 0 less than or equal to 3? We output it again, and so forth and so on. Do you notice how counter is never being updated? It's always staying at 0. 0 is going to be less than or equal to the user number if the user number is 3, say for example, or 4 or 5, or it's going to keep on looping over and over and over again. What do we call this? We call this an infinite loop. And we want to stay away from infinite loops as much as possible. So you must make sure that you have the 3 components with a while statement. It has to have a starting value. It has to have some sort of a condition that must be met eventually. So we call that the predicate or the Boolean expression. And then you also have to have within the while statement something that increments or decrements the counter so that it's going to reach its eventual goal here within the predicate or the Boolean expression. And that's it. All right, so this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope that video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.